Okay, this is my dad's 1917 Model T touring car, and tell us about how you found it, and was it running, condition to add?
Okay. Not much of a find-out story because I lived in a small town, 600 people in western Massachusetts at the time. And a fellow that had a 1914 Model T found this one in Maine and trailered it in. It was painted silver with yellow wheels, and it had been painted with a broom, I believe.
A circus car.
It was, yeah, it was rough. And
What year was this? About 50 something?
this is 1957. Okay, and I was 17, and this is a 1917. Now, this car, I took it down to the frame and brought it back up, and spent a lot of time sanding the wheels down to wood. It needs redoing. The whole car needs, obviously to be redone. I hadn't done anything to it basically since 1958, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
It run fine, and the best trip that I took with it was 120 miles from western Massachusetts to eastern Connecticut when my parents moved. For that trip, it was on a July day. I remember it got warm. With this car, I drove through the middle of Hartford, Connecticut. No problem. I don't want to try it today. This was in 1958.
Mm-hmm.
People still drove with some intelligence.
But you didn't have overheating problems? Or...
I did, and it's quite common. I had that problem from time to time with my 29, but at this particular car, about halfway when I got to, say, Glastonbury, somewhere around there, it started steaming on me, about halfway. I think.
But this doesn't have a water pump at all on it.
No water
So
pump. This
that's
is
like an aftermarket thing you could put on.
This is a thermal siphon system. The hot fluid is supposed to go up and the cold fluid come in and take its place. It works to an extent. There are...
Just not in July.
Yeah. Where the, on the side, like the Model A and the Model T has where the water jacket hooks in to the radiator. They made, I should say, a water pump that fit on the side there and tied into that, and then went back into the radiator. I had that on a 1926 pickup truck that I bought, somewhat cheaper than this one. It was $40 at the auction.
Wish you probably still had that water pump on.
It had that water pump on it, and I give it a teenager paint job, and my cousin, who had an upholstery shop, did a bit of work on it. He also did this one, did a nice job on this one. But I sold it for $125. That's when I was a teenager, and that's where my dealer could, I'm not a dealer, I'm not a used car dealer, and I got this, if you want it, I got a price on it, if you don't want it, there's the road, and I don't mind negotiating a little bit, because it just goes to show that you value your money. If you come in and just start giving me some BS,
There's the road.
there's the road, yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, like I said, did 120 miles in this thing without a problem. Now, speaking of problems with this car or that car, I would suggest you have several things right. One, a crank that works. So if the battery's a problem, battery's not a problem in this car, it doesn't have one. The magneto handles everything. If you're strong enough to spin your engine over where it'll make enough juice to start it. Most of us break down and buy a little dry cell battery, or nowadays an iCab, and there's room to put it next to the gas tank. Then you could start it about like a Model A. That's a good thing to have for this one, but have the crank. Same with that one. Have a hand pump. and, you know, poo. But when all else fails, the hand pump doesn't fail. You have a patch kit, but I learned that you need one other thing beside the patch kit, and it has some large patches. I learned that keeping a Newsweek or whatever type of magazine under the back seat, like on that two-door, I had 2 flat tires, and the best of the 2 had a blowout, and I put a big patch on it. It was a pretty good sized blowout. Put a patch on it, and then I put it in the tire, put the tube in the tire, and then I put that Newsweek magazine over where the tire had blown.
So that was like your new tread.
It was
Newsweek.
It was a Newsweek, and it's probably good for, I'd say, 50 to 100 miles, depending on how you drive. Anyways, you don't want too thin a magazine. It worked fine, and these little hints when you're driving, too many people today, take it too serious. Like if there's a problem, we have to call the garage.
Call
Ted's
AAA.
garage. Well, Ted's garage may not be handy, and it may be a Chevrolet garage or whatever, and they look at them and say, duh. Go to the tech meetings that your group has and know the guys. And I have gone out at 3 o'clock in the morning and got a friend of mine. And ever since then, I can do no wrong. It's the type of thing that we get that if you've ever been in the military. And I'd like to digress just for a second. And you may have noticed my hat. I don't normally wear it. Ted was telling me about talking to some of the people that have Model A's, and he found that a good percentage of them had military experience and military interest. I like talking with military people, especially combat veterans. We can talk where if you run into one of us and you think we're a bit strange, don't get too excited, We've been there and done that, and we know you've not been there, not done that, don't know, and you never will know what camaraderie is. You don't know what losing friends is. So handle them gently. And I've always said that the real veteran was not me, it was my wife, who for a year worried about what happened. If you're a parent and got a teenager and they're not home at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know how you feel? She felt that way for a year. Remember, there's 2 veterans. The veteran that was there and the wife that waited, or the mother that waited, and so forth. Enough of that pitch, but I did want the opportunity to mention that. And if you're a veteran, you got a problem or anything, you want to contact me?
You
Probably.
just send a comment through.
Yeah, so if you can send a comment through him, he's a techie. I spent good money getting him educated as a techie. And now he's working on Model A's. But he used to work on computers. As a matter of fact, he was teaching programmers how to program in Italy. I know that because one day I was digging in my front yard and dug up the phone line while he was talking to somebody about programming in Italy.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to Model A's. Why don't we look at another Model A?
Yeah, let's
This
switch.
time put him in the driver's seat, literally.
My jalopy here, let me switch.